to check the Athlon, the preseason college basketball magazines, and in Columbus, in my neighborhood, the college basketball preview comes out, and it has a team in our league who was not even at that time picked to finish in the top 4 or 5, but none of our players were on the cover. They had a team from our league's player on the cover. And I thought, to me, that was a significant statement about how relevant our program was at the time. And it's not by any stretch an indictment on anything other than that was the current state. And obviously, no one had this program more relevant than Thad for a number of years. But that's where it was. And the challenge was, how do we get that? Well, I went back and checked last year, and C.J. Jackson was a picture of him on the cover, and I felt good, got warm and fuzzy inside. And so we're taking strides, we're taking steps, but I think we've got a lot to prove before we feel like we are where we need to be.
Can you kind of assess what you got out of your freshmen this year and what you need out of them going forward?
Yeah, I think all 3 of them had, really all 4 of them, but particularly 3 of them had really good moments. I thought all 4 at times, but obviously we'll talk about the 3 that are returning. Dwayne, Luther, and Justin, I think they had moments where they were impactful in us winning games and having really positive stretches of the season. And then they had other moments where, as they've told me in one-on-one meetings, man, this is harder than I thought, a lot harder than I thought. So it's good. They've got it, they all 3 had significant moments, and I think that is only going to help them moving forward. And they all 3 need to have tremendous off seasons. As we know, the clock moving forward 4 months doesn't guarantee, you're 4 months better as a player. So they're gonna need to have important summers, and I believe they will.
Chris, I saw a video of Greg Oden pleading with coaches to consider him for any vacancies they may have. Could you evaluate him as a potential coaching assistant for some staff? I'm not suggesting for your vacancy, but for some staff.
Greg, I think he's tremendous, has a lot to add. Listen, the reality is, anytime we've seen this all over, I think that anytime you're a tremendous person, check on Greg, tremendous person. Anytime you were a tremendous player, people always assume that the transition to coaching is going to be one that's natural and easy. It's not. It's a tremendous amount of work and time, particularly at this level, because the recruiting dynamic is so much a part of these jobs. And there are years, Ryan Peaton has had, 13, 14, 15 years of recruiting contacts from recruiting the state that takes time. So I think that people have to understand that anytime a guy in his position transitions at his stage in life, it can be difficult at times. But I would endorse him at the highest level for a position that people felt like he was qualified for. I just think he would add a ton to a staff in a really positive way.
How much of the NCAA tournament, if any, beyond what you participated in, did you watch?
I usually, we got beat on Sunday night, right? I think we were one of the last games on Sunday night. So, it usually takes me, I'll come around probably at the end of the next weekend to where I'll watch a couple games.
I'm just wondering, we saw a very defensive-heavy championship, and a great storyline with Virginia. I'm just wondering what you think that all means, big picture for college basketball, whether it's a good thing that the defensive dominated.
Yeah. You know, that's probably, my opinion would be, I think what's good for college basketball is highly competitive, entertaining games, and in some people's minds, that's offensive driven. You know, my eye is different because you're in the weeds than the guy who's just picking up and starting to watch in February, March. Or the young lady who may just be turning on a game, she may want to see offense. I just think those two teams were tremendous representatives of what high-level basketball looks like in Virginia. That story that is a movie in the making. It is a tremendous story in the way they finished their 3 games. All of which they could have lost their last 3 games. Says a lot about their team and who they are as people. So I think it was 2 defensive-minded teams, but the tricky thing with Virginia, we played them a couple years ago in the NCAA tournament when I was at Butler, and it really shockingly became an offensive, the game was in the 80s, is their offensive efficiency is really, really good. It's always top 10 in the country. So while they may not post games always in the 80s, they're a highly efficient offensive team, and I think that's what you need to compete at the highest level, along with their defense.
I don't want to get into the room, but is your daughter all right?
She's great. Thank you for asking. Sorry for that. Just man.
Don't apologize.
Yeah, no, he was incredible to her, but yeah, she's great. She, you know, we were away for a couple of days, so we called her and told her that her principal, who she loved, had passed away, and Sophie Schrage, who's one of her best friends, is leaving. So that was you know, a lot of tears for an 8-year-old, but she's bouncing back great.
Get her a dog.
Yeah, 2. We got 2.
Get a 3rd. Did you go to the Final Four?
No.
Adding to Lori's question, you know, Virginia has like Hunter's a lottery pick, and Guy and Jerome are great players, and Texas Tech, Culver's a lottery pick, and they have great players. But you know, that championship game wasn't Zion and 3 top 5 guys. It wasn't.
Yeah.
When you watch Virginia or Texas Tech or Auburn or some of the teams like that, is there any part of it that you guys have great players here, but again, you don't have 3 lottery games?
Yeah.
Do you watch that and think, yeah, that can be us?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's, you can't sleep thinking about that, really. I think it really dominates your thinking, and you know, monopolizes your time in the off season. How do you build a roster and a team that can best position itself for that night, for Monday night? I also realized that Virginia had knocked on the door as a 1 seed for 4 years and hadn't gotten there. And there's something to be said for just knocking on the door and being there enough times. That happened with Villanova a couple years ago, where everybody said Jay Wright couldn't get past you know, couldn't win a championship, and he's won 2 in 3 years. So I think the challenge for us is really trying to build a roster that is capable of taking a step forward for us, and knowing that not sure what all that's going to look like, but I think it just dominates your thinking in the off season. How do we put ourselves in position to try to, you know, get to a night like that?
And just like super big picture, from the moment of coming in and wanting your team to be relevant, and now, you know, just taking a quick look at how the first 2 years have gone, do you feel like you're on track? Do you feel like what you wanted to do the day you got the job here and where this team is heading into this offseason with this recruiting class is the path what you thought it would be?
Yeah, I think we're ahead of schedule.
Ahead of schedule. Why would you say you're ahead of schedule?
I didn't think we'd go, you know, I wasn't sure this quickly we would be in a position to where, you know, we would have guys that have had early tournament success, both getting there and then competing. And, you know, I think that's just the reality. Now, I also know that, you know, like I said, we have a lot of work ahead of us. And I think, you know, significant question marks about how, you know, we're going to be in certain areas and the improvement we need to make in certain areas, given, you know, the year we just went through in the Big Ten. So, but I feel like our program is very healthy now. And I think having had tournament experience, it gives your guys a taste that I think is important as you continue to talk about, you know, getting to that point and then hopefully moving forward.
Kind of going off what Lori said and a little bit of what Doug said, you know, about the defense that these teams that made it, you know, all the way down the line throughout this tournament. You've kind of placed a very big emphasis on defense here in your first couple of years. I mean, does that, not saying you need self-assurance, but I mean, does that kind of give you some, knowing that that's where the game of basketball is heading and knowing that that's what you guys have implemented? And I mean, even like a team like what you guys played in Houston, who I think were top 3 defensively or something like that.
No doubt. I think that has to be the DNA of your team, and it speaks as much to your team's competitiveness overall than anything. Obviously, schematically, there's some important things, but what you're trying to do is create a team that competes together, and you most often see that on the defensive end. You see it certainly offensively, but I think if your team's really committed to competing together, you see that a lot on the defensive end. So that's always going to be in our DNA. But you know, we haven't been top 10, which is elite. That's a challenge for us moving forward. And then obviously our offensive numbers were very good in year one. We were very good offensively in year one, very efficient. I think finished second in the league and first in defense. We got to get better in the offensive area. You cannot. I've studied all the numbers. You cannot advance in the tournament and have typically a defense that is in the 100s in the efficient. It doesn't matter how good your offense is. If your offense is top 10 and your defense is 100 in the 100s, you're not going to have a chance to advance. Look back at the numbers right now, and if you study the numbers, you'll see the teams that have advanced in the tournament typically are in the top 50, and the deeper they get, the top 25, and then, you know, third weekend stuff like top 10 in offensive and defensive efficiency, and we got to get better in those areas.
And kind of switching over to the offensive side of the ball, you know, there were times this season where, I mean, you guys were getting plenty of good open looks. There was just some times where you guys just couldn't knock down those shots. I mean, how do you feel about the shooting that you're returning, and then the 3 guys that you're adding this season, or 4, I guess we count CJ, in terms of adding a lot of that perimeter shooting and improving on the offensive side?
Yeah, I think it's got to get better. Guys typically shoot it better as their career progresses. Typically, right? John Diebler's the best example of that here. You look at his numbers his freshman year. Now he was an elite shooter, but guys typically really improve in that. So that's why we talk about this offseason for those guys getting better. You know, Luther's numbers overall look really good from the 3-point line, but he obviously struggled there late. Dwayne needs to get more efficient. Justin's numbers were pretty good, but all 3 of those guys got to keep making strides.
You mentioned Alonzo. What position I know you like his versatility, but what position do you think he's going to play initially?
I don't know that I'd put a number on it right now, really. But versatile forward, because some of it is I'm not sure. You know, I have an idea, but one of those forward spots.
And then CJ Walker, I think he went forgotten for a lot of the year. What can he bring, and were there moments in practice where you wish that you got to the games?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He's a bulldog. He's tough. He's competitive. He's got natural, intangible leadership ability, I believe. And he's also a guy that you know, he's certainly a point guard, but he's also a guy where you can play kind of two point guards together as well. But he's going to be a really solid addition. And he played on a super talented Florida State team, and was solid, averaged 8 points, and did some good things for that group. But we're really excited about him. People might have forgot about him. We certainly didn't.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, guys.